and anything you can or say could be used against you.
Absolutely.
We're not talking about annexation, so hopefully it'll
Please don't.
I bet you're glad to be your Stephanie, not the other Stephanie right now.
I think
Yes.
both Stephanies are in the middle of it. I have a
Those
feeling,
Stephanies are treading water at the moment. Okay, we're live, David.
Okay, I want to call the meeting to order of the Art and Cultural Events meeting, Town of Kiowa Island. First order on the agenda is to approve the minutes of August 5th. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Joan. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Approved. Under old business, I guess we'll review. I know we've got a lot to get into. We're going to be talking about safety protocols and everything, but I want to first talk a little bit about the review of the season calendar and our first event, which means Judy can sort of talk about the setup. I emailed a long email to her. She asked me how it went. I was probably way too detailed in my explanation, but I thought it went pretty well. I noticed a few things that needed to be straightened out with the events management folks. Both Stephanie and I sort of saw that in terms of general appearance being the foremost consideration, and just sort of straightening out how they represent the town of Kiowa Island. And I think we're going to get that worked out. But I think the jazz orchestra did a great job. The crowd seemed to love sort of getting back to a live concert. I think there was enough spacing, but people did come in without masks, even though we had plenty of free ones in the lobby. Many more took them off as they entered the venue. And it was a pretty big crowd. I'm just not used to big crowds, so it was a little freaky for me to see all these people in one place. But there was plenty of room in the lobby, which was great. There was never a crush of people anywhere because that lobby is so large, and we brought people in on the left side, which worked fairly well. I had talked to Bill. I thought the lighting was adequate. There was a piano player that was on stage right that was not well lit at all. And I just thought one of the things that happened with the lighting is that they weren't up high enough, and so they didn't create that great of an angle. And so there was a lot of light on the back of audiences members' heads if they were in like the first few tables. And that's something we can mention, down the road. But being our first event at the conference center, I thought it went fairly well. The sound was great. The room was very live, even with the big crowd to absorb some of it. I thought it was actually a little loud for me, and I'm still half deaf from a Jefferson Airplane concert I went to in 1969. But I will say that the sound mix was quite good. I did leave a little early. I left around 8:30. Stephanie stayed. I checked the parking lots though. The side lot was filled. There was only a few extra spaces in the back lot. There was plenty of room in the indoor garage because people just don't know they can park there, I think. And there was plenty of vacant spaces in the old beach access across the street where people can park now that there's no hotel or anything in there. We had one complaint for someone complained to me that we had run out of handicap spaces. And that used to happen also when we were at East Beach on occasion as well. I mentioned that the woman who ran the will call table didn't have a list of our comps, but we sort of identified, our folks who were coming in, and they had no problem. One of the things, and this is for future reference, they put the bar in the middle of the lobby, which necessitated running a big cable from the cash register in front of one of the main entrances to the ballroom. Jessica, who was there, who works with Barbara, taped the cord, and we weren't even using those doors as entrances, but that location blocks one of the main seating areas for the conference center, and the cord running, even with it being taped over, looks really tacky. So if you've got an event at the conference center at some point, it's something we're going to have to think about in terms of the location of that and how they run the cables there. Stephanie was great. She came in with a bunch of masks, our large COVID sign in terms of the recommendations. We set up, the resort had actually set up hand sanitizer stations in the lobby, and people did make use of them. And Judy, you want to talk a bit about setup and some of the damage that Snyder came in unloading?
Yes, we got an email from Barbara, the facility manager, who, and I don't remember his name right now, but anyway, sent a thing to Barbara that the Snyders had damaged some walls coming in. When they were bringing in the stage and that sort of thing, I took a look at it. I think you took a look at it, David. What they've got is a situation where they have to, from the loading dock, you have to turn a lot of corners. You have to be careful. And the facilities manager was not at all pleased. We got the Charleston Jazz Orchestra said they would take care of it and work with Snyder's. And I suspect what happened is that I don't know, and I don't want to ask questions when I don't really want to know. So I suspect that Snyder's was contacted by the CJO, and the CJO said, "Oh, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it." Because the Snyder's has a ongoing long relationship with the CJO. And anytime we've had a problem with Snyder's, they've taken care of it. So it was taken care of, and that's fine. But this is something we're going to have to watch. And I'm thinking in particular about the ballet, when we're bringing in risers and all that stuff. It's going to be a mess. It's going to be very, very difficult. So I don't know what to do except to caution people and to maybe go as far as to say you will be responsible for any damage. That I don't like putting that on artists, but I don't want the resort to be unhappy with us either, and I don't want us to pay for it either. So we're going to have to figure out how to deal with that. Back on one of the points that David brought up, the sound. The only thing, it was Andrew Hope. He does all the sound for the Charleston Jazz Orchestra. And Andrew Higdon, Hope Sound, he had mics only on the piano and the vocalist and the solo instrument mic for the instrumentals. That's it. The rest of it was just plain the orchestra. And when I went to a rehearsal to check things out, and my reaction was, oh my goodness, it is loud. And I talked to Andrew, and I talked with guy from the Charleston College of Charleston, who's Robert Lewis. I talked with them about it. And Charlton Singleton, and they said they agreed that it was pretty loud, but of course people would help and they'd try to hold it down. But the point is that this is really a live auditorium, and we put somebody in like a band like Liquid Pleasure and they turn it up to their regular levels, and we're not going to have an audience with any hearing at all. So that's something that's going to be brought potentially a problem. The resort, I think, is happy with the sound. You think about it, most of the things they use that facility for are meetings and stuff, and this is going to work well because the speakers' voices will carry. But unless they hang some curtains or spray something on the ceiling or something, it's going to be really, really live. We need to take that into consideration. But I was very, very nervous having to get everything done in advance and turn it over to David and Stephanie and the rest of you to take care of it when mine not being there to do any hands-on stuff. But I appreciate your doing it. I'm glad things went as well as they did, thank goodness. But I was on pins and needles the whole time, hoping that we wouldn't run into any problems. And you all know, when we have an event, we're going to have problems. What you hope is that they're little bitty ones and that they're fixable. You don't want any big ones. And so that's what I was hoping for, and I think that's what we ended up with. The Charleston Jazz Orchestra liked the venue. They liked the fact that they had a room that worked for them. They were very pleased with the whole thing. And so thank you again for all of your help.
Appreciate that. And I think one of the things of the resort, they were very sensitive because it's a new facility, and that's one, and overly sensitive, I would say. Talking to Barbara, they have not padded the freight elevator, which is something that I told Barbara they might really consider, since it's a freight elevator, and you're going to get scratches in there, you know, as they use it. But since we were the first to sort of use it and bring stuff in, the damage they did an estimate. It was only $200 in terms of damage, and so as Judy said, it was taken care of. So it was some scratches, you know, of the paint. I think Stephanie and I also went down and sort of looked at it, and it really wasn't major. There weren't like huge pieces of the wall taken out. So I think a lot of it was oversensitivity to the fact that nothing's been, you know, they haven't moved anything in there before. So anyway. Van, you were there. Becky, anything else?
Well, I wanted to say, I thought it was excellent. And I heard from other people how much they enjoyed it. The crowd was extremely enthusiastic. I sat in the very back against the wall. For me, the sound was good, really good. And yeah, I suppose there were some lighting issues or something, but for the most part, people just loved being at a live performance. And you could tell the orchestra loved giving a live performance after all the time.
I spoke with the CJO people about the lighting, and they said as far as their situation was, it was fine. But I told them that it didn't appear to be fine as far as our situation and our audience. And I told them that next, if we do this again, we're going to have to get those lights up. And they did not use our lighting people, because our lighting people charge was a great deal more than the people they did use. And the answer I got back is, well, maybe we'll just have to fork out some more money to get a different lighting situation. So they're aware of the situation, and and I think are willing to take care of it if we want them to another time.
And it wasn't bad, and it's something that I noticed. Bill would have certainly noticed if he was there. But you know, most audience members probably didn't bother them, Judy. Van or Stephanie, anything else from your perspective? Yeah, go ahead, Stephanie.
I just wanted to say that I received a lot of positive feedback about the event, and also Councilmember Connolly was in attendance, and she had a wonderful time and was very proud of the first event of the program. And also she said she felt very comfortable. Her feedback was she felt very comfortable with the audience. The only suggestion that she had made was that the communal water stations with the pitchers, that maybe that we could work with the resort and see if they'd be willing in the meantime to do water bottles, which I think they actually probably already have. So that was her suggestion. And then also David mentioned there was sort of a misrepresentation with our event services people about what I think they were under a different impression about the kind of event it was. I have worked with the company, and we've come up with a solution of a navy blue polo for them to wear that will also have event services on the back, because I think that's really helpful for our patrons and anyone attending an event to see those people and know that they are, you know, they're checking you at the door, they're checking the tickets, but it will not be what they were wearing that time. So I think I did ask about all black. For them as the company, they really feel like they need to have the event services on the back and their company logo. And so I think the navy blue polo will actually work. It looks to be high quality in regards to what was at the CJO. So if everyone's comfortable with that, then we can see what it looks like at the next event and go from there. But
Will the pants be jeans or what?
oh no, I was very clear. I was very clear when I talked to the company about what would be appropriate. And I said we would prefer slacks, but that khakis would also do. And so that's what we've agreed upon. And I'm bringing that back to you as a council just to get your feedback on it, if that seems appropriate to you. I think with this kind of service, there's going to be some kind of limitation simply because I don't think they provide full uniforms for their people. I think it's a shirt in all, and then just a color for the slacks or whatever. So does that sound like it would work for everyone?
I think so.
Okay.
They made me feel that I was really well dressed, I will say.
Me too.
I wasn't. Next on the agenda is the Charlestones on September 19th. I know we got a lot to talk about again with protocols, but let's hold off and just talk about the concert itself. Programs, piano tuning, light and sound. Van, you want to take the lead on that?
I just need to know there's a verdict on the lighting. Bill, did you go over there, Bill?
Yes, I was over there and I was amazed at the amount of lighting that they put in. They have a whole series of new lights on the ceiling that shine down that can be adjusted. And David has a small, like I guess like a laptop computer that he can control all the lighting. So you can basically get what you want to have in terms of direction and in terms of color as well as intensity. So I was pleased to see what he had, and if before the performance, either he could set it up, or as if David's going to be there during the performance, he can adjust the lighting as the performance goes on. But it's much different than we've had in the past, extremely improved.
He will not be there. The plan now is for him to set it up after church,
Yeah,
turn it on and leave it.
yeah, he can set it up and leave it. Yep.
And all we have to do is turn it off.
Right. And I took pictures of what he has, and it basically on the where all the lighting has always been, it's the top row is what the new lighting is set up for.
Did you discuss with him what lighting you thought was needed for this particular concert?
No.
Okay. Do you want to come over after church that day and help him set it up? I mean,
Sure, we could do that.
advise him.
Yeah, I didn't know exactly how they were going to perform, if they move around or if they basically stay in one position
No,
the whole time.
they're static. Yeah.
Okay. Then
Right,
that would be
the
even easier. Sure.
Yeah, in the center. Yeah.
Yep.
So you're welcome to come over after church, which would be about 11:30 or so, 11:45. And if you want to do that, if not, I'll certainly be there.
Okay. Sounds good.
Have him set it up, and then it's good to go.
Good.
So Stephanie, we won't need any extra lighting, I guess, for this. So.
Right. I've already taken that out of the spreadsheet and let the lighting vendor know. And Van, did you want to talk about the program?
They submitted a program, very brief, and I turned it over to Stephanie, and you can explain what you've done with it.
Well, I just need to know how many you think we need to print. It's just it's one sheeter front and back. So they put it together. It's pretty it's not a problem for me to print. So I'll just need to know how many you think. To the point of this event that is all the tickets are gone. So I have reserved some for the Arts Council. I would need to know who plans on attending so that I can adjust the ticket counts and make some more available if we already know who will and will not be there. This was our first ticket release with the new system. And there has been, most people were able to get them without any trouble. There is a little bit of, I don't know if you want me to talk about this now, David, but I did want to update the council on this new ticketing system. So go ahead. Okay. So I was under the impression when Audience View bought out Vendini that they were a much larger company. And so that the interface was going to be, somewhat a little bit more user-friendly. It appears after many calls to support and just working through the kinks in the system that they have either come up with a new ticketing system altogether, or they're trying to morph Audience View and Vendini. And so actually the ticketing interface is everyone, including the Ask the Expert call. Everyone seems to be learning at the same time, including the support people. So it has not been exactly a smooth transition for anyone. And so there's been some, and actually it's even with all the training videos they've put out, and there's no one to actually call. You have to put in a ticket if you have a problem, and then a support person contacts you. And so they seem to be developing all of the interface as they go along. So I put in requests for certain things. I think there's a lot of people from Vendini having a little bit of growing pains here with it because of what they were accustomed to. It seems like Audience View is trying to make all of those accommodations. It's just that it is not what you would have imagined it to be. So with that said, there's several things that on our calendar of events, it adds some steps. Some things are kind of clunky, I would say, for the end user. And so I have figured out a way to actually make it easier for our patrons to not have to do so many clicks, but I would have to actually take that online calendar of events that I don't know if you guys have had a chance to go to it, but it actually lists them all out in a separate interface, and then go back to our old system where each event is on our website and they click it from there, because it takes several steps out for our patrons, and it takes them to the page that actually they just enter their promo code in, and then it's kind of it's easier to transition through the process of obtaining a ticket and entering your credit card information and all of that. I have not had an opportunity to do that because I actually have to go into our website now and create all the event tiles and link the actual ticketing software to it. But I think that is going to be the best way to make it easy for our patrons to transition to this ticketing interface. But again, I didn't know that until we actually went to go through it. So it's been kind of a little bit of it's been challenging actually on I think everyone that's using Audience View from Vendini to make the transition. So I'm working through some of that, but we'll get it sorted out. So
Did I hear you say that all 180 tickets are out?
it's actually 150.
150 are out.
Mhm.
Is that where it stops?
That is where it stops at the moment.
Okay, on the
Because
sheet.
my
Okay.
now we can talk about it, but based on the sheet that I had from what the numbers we agreed to, we weren't putting out the extra chairs this time. And so that does alter our numbers, and also being at 75%.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. And so, but if that's changed, I can adjust it. I've let everyone know that's called in, which I've talked to a lot of patrons in the last couple of weeks. And it seems like everyone is excited about coming. I needed to implement and let people know that, and I had kind of forgotten about this because it had been a while. We put anybody that isn't going to use their tickets and lets us know when it's a no charge event, those tickets will be put back online 2 days prior. And so I haven't had anybody turn in tickets yet, but I've been letting patrons know that are interested that will be the process. And so, yeah, does anybody have any questions about that?
I do. Maybe I'm missed something, but
Sure.
Are we going to, what are our COVID procedures going to be? Are we going to require masks? Are we going to space people out? Several organizations that I'm in.
Becky, we're gonna cover that under new business. That's the first item under new business. So we've got a whole lot to cover when we get there.
Oh,
Okay.
so
We
we
haven't covered it
haven't
yet.
covered that. Okay.
No. We haven't.
Okay.
We will be discussing that.
I have
One question about the
question
tickets.
about ticketing. How do patrons get their code? Is it the same way that they did before? They have to get online with the town or something and get a code?
No, and so Keely had last season or last season that she did that, she kind of had created this where they got online and entered a code, and then it actually is a lot easier for us to just accept the emails that people are requesting it. We have a database already of people that are registered as Kiowa Island property owners that we've sent the promo code out to. So I have answered probably about 200 emails regarding that, because people, and out of those 200 emails, probably 20 of them were not actually registered and were new registers. But most of them was because they forgot their code. And so I think moving forward next season, we do not send the promo code out until right before the season planner, because we sent it out in July. And of course, like everyone else's inboxes is full. And so it gets set to the side. But I have been helping people, I've been re-verifying them and making sure that they are. And we have a database, our email marketing software, actually, I have a list for the early access property owners. So we have
all the old codes from last year, they still work for this year.
No. And when we discussed this, when we discussed actually doing the promo code, we talked about the need to keep it, to do a new one every season, because otherwise it compromises the integrity of the list, so to speak. Because we are able to keep those people in a list, we can redistribute the promo code every season. If the council feels like that's not necessary and you don't want to do that, we can talk about that. But I do think that it would be easier for people to somewhat cheat the system if we didn't sort of keep it moving and a new code every season. But it does create additional steps for patrons as well as staff. So, but then if you leave it the same, you have the problem of people giving their codes out or getting the code and then accessing it. And then, you kind of compromise the whole point of giving them a 3-day lead time on tickets.
Yeah, you want to keep it secure, but you also want to keep it simple. So that's the tightrope we're sort of walking. Stephanie, in terms of the events people scanning, what are they going to be using for this event? What device?
They're going to use our iPods. That's the other kink in the ticketing software right now, which, ours council members won't have to do at this time, but the app that does the scanning for the tickets for the apples, which when you scan a ticket, it will only tell you whether or not that ticket is valid or not. It does not have all the information like the old ones did that showed you how many people had checked in, how many seats were still left, which I think a lot of people have said that's absolutely unacceptable for, for that app. It's kind of useless if you can't, I mean, it's not useless. You can tell whether or not the ticket is valid, but from a security standpoint and from entry standpoint, you should be able to see how many people have not checked in yet, even if it's just a number. So they are working with the app developer to add all of those features, but it's not there yet. I haven't checked it this week to see how far they've gotten with that progress, but it is a work in progress.
They still have to have internet access at the church in order to scan. And I think that's the thing that we had to do each time, was make sure all of the scanners, the iPhones, were geared. So, and as long as the church's password is the same and we're using the same phones, it should be fine, because that usually is kept in memory. But Van, that's something also to consider in terms of making sure they haven't changed the password for their Wi-Fi, because all those phones have to be set to Wi-Fi in order to scan the tickets.
Yeah, and I actually think the best way we can handle that moving forward is probably to get our own MiFi kind of hotspot and do it that way, because it eliminates the need for every single time, whoever it is, myself or you, David, or the person that replaced Keely, it just keeps it all central, and we don't have to depend on anyone else changing their password or it not being strong. At least we know that everything will sync up properly. But I need to check into some of those details. But I thought the same thing when I was setting up the scanners a couple of weeks ago. I was like, we need to make sure that we're going to have to make sure that that happens. So I don't know that I could get that for the first event for the Charles Stones, but I think that's what we should do moving forward to keep it streamlined.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Van, anything else that you need in terms of people? The piano tuner is set, or is there
No piano.
piano?
No
So, okay.
piano for that, right?
No piano. It's just 4 guys and no mic, no piano. Pretty simple.
Do you know, Van, do you need to know, or Stephanie, do we need to know which, whom among Arts Council members will not be going?
Yes, I would like to know that information.
Yeah,
Not-
who is going to be there? Raise your hand.
I already gave your tickets away, Judy, actually.
Good.
I'll be there.
So Kristen, Van, and Becky, I will hopefully be out of the country at that for that, so I will not be there.
We might never see you again.
Quite possible. We'll see. We'll see.
No.
Wait a second. Did we authorize you to go out of the country, David? Yeah.
Got my hall pass in my drawer here. First piano bar on September 22nd. Joan, how are we doing with that?
Oh, with the
Gary.
with my
Yeah.
with the magic show.
I'm thinking of the piano bar in September.
Excuse me. Those are all set. And this week the end of the week, I'll be sending out my first notice on IKEA. And so I've been working with the Sandcastle, and it'll be basically as we've done before. And of course, we finally got the Blue Heron Boys date settled. And yeah, they're ready to go.
Great. Okay.
Another note about Joan, did you want to tell them about the difference for the 3-person cost for the Blue Heron Pond Boys? She might not be.
I might not have heard that.
So I think, Joan, didn't you want to talk about the, when we have 3 performers at the piano bar at a
Oh,
different?
excuse me. Okay, said the road set. Yeah, I think our rate should be raised for the for the multiple performers. Right now it's at, $4.50. And I'd like to raise it to 5. Um,
Actually, Joan, it was 4 and you raised,
I mean,
you
yeah,
raised it to 450, yeah.
right, yeah. I wanted to raise it to 4.50. I mean, when we're paying lighting people and stuff to spend a couple hours, and here we're paying 3 or 4 people, only $400. I don't think that's quite right.
Stephanie, do we need a vote on that if we're increasing the budget, or can we just do that?
I don't think that amount of cost is going to make a huge difference.
The only other event that we have before our next meeting is Marantz on October 3rd. And Bill, I know you've been talking with them about that.
Yes, I've been talking because I didn't know what our situation is going to be, which we will discuss later in terms of the COVID and so forth. But Brad has indicated that he'll perform any place we want to have him. It's not a dancing group; it's a small singing group, not unlike the numbers that Van has, but with a small number of performers. So he doesn't need all of the things that we've done before in terms of having dancers and having lighting and all the rest of stuff that goes with that. So he's pretty flexible about whatever we decide.
One of the things when we talk about the safety stuff coming up is checking in with the artists themselves to see if they have any restrictions. There are some artists nationally, internationally that are not going to perform unless their crowd is vaccinated. Or whether masks are required. And so that's something that everyone ought to be checking with their artists or the artist agents to determine whether it's okay. As Bill has said, the Marantz is fine. They'll go wherever and whatever, and they're going to leave the safety protocols up to us, as I understand. Is that right, Bill?
Right. Yep.
We'll talk about who's going to show up for that event, but let's go right into the safety stuff in terms of what we can and cannot do, vaccinations and masking. I know I've talked to a lot of you individually, and a lot of you expressed concerns about whether or not you can even show up at your own event. And I completely understand that. And I think both Stephanie and I are we don't want to force anybody to do anything they're either A, not comfortable with, and B, there are doctors or their medical people advise them not to do. We're all aware of the bad news, which is that South Carolina is one of the worst places in the country right now in terms of COVID and in terms of incidents. We're in the top 3. West Virginia beat us out today, but we were the top ones yesterday. There are certain things that we can do, and there's certain things that we can't do. And I've been in touch with some of the venues, and Stephanie talked to the resort. Stephanie, do you want to talk a little bit about your conversation with Roger Warren?
Yeah, so, well, just as a intro, obviously we've seen a lot of the different venues releasing information about what their practices are. I've been collecting that information, talking to Stephanie Tillerson, talking to our town attorney, and talking to the mayor about what we can and we can't do. So unlike the Gilliard, we do not own our own venue space. The Gilliard has owned half by the city of Charleston, so they consider it a city facility, which, as you know, per the governor's orders, they can require masks. Our town attorney's legal opinion is that we cannot require vaccination passports. Some of the other jurisdictions that seem to be doing some of that, or that can be done by a private business, is seen that it could be challenged. and may be challenged in the future because the governor's orders were pretty specific about that component. And so we can require our vendors and all of our event services people, anybody that we are paying to wear masks. But we did consult the resort about hypothetically having council create a emergency ordinance regarding town programs and events and having a mask requirement. And while they can do that, the resort has made it clear that if that is a requirement for the Arts Council program, that they would ask that we cancel our events at their venues because that violates their policies and procedures for their guests, because they're recommending it, but they're not requiring it, which to me, that is our most important venue. So that's something that the council needs to consider. And so, I mean, to me, we have several options. We can continue as we are, recommending people to wear masks. We can consider canceling events through January and see how it goes. The mayor made it clear that if the council feels very strongly about requiring masks, even with the information about the resort, that they are willing to put it on the agenda and have maybe at the next Ways and Means meeting right before is the 27th, that they would be willing to have a special call meeting to discuss it. But obviously, just because it goes on the agenda, the entire council would have to vote to make that a requirement, and it would have to be done by an emergency ordinance, and then it would have to be renewed every 61 days. That is kind of the information that I needed to bring back to you and obviously discuss it. So David, that's.
Yeah, and let me say that there are things that we still can do. We can revisit our 75% capacity decision and lower that if for some reason we believe that more social distancing is necessary at our events. So we do have control over that. I think Charleston County is doing better than most. I looked at the statistics today for our county, and 85% of the folks who are over 65 have been fully vaccinated in Charleston County. My supposition is that in Kiowa, that's even higher than in Charleston County. We know that boosters are going to be available September 20th. I know some of you have already signed up for your booster shot. I've had mine, and I felt like Popeye eating his can of spinach before my trip. So I felt a whole lot less stressed having had that as well. But as I said, I absolutely understand that some of you may not be comfortable attending events given this current state of affairs, or have been told by your doctor that you shouldn't. Stephanie and I both think that somebody from the Arts Council, one person, should be at our events for the entire time. But because we have events management people taking tickets and ushering and doing crowd control, it may not be. It need to be more than one. I think that's the minimum. I can tell you that I feel comfortable being there, given the distancing that I found. I think we might want to think about dropping back to 65% capacity in maybe some of the smaller venues like Turtle Point. You know, again, we're not going to be able to. That would hurt some of our artists if we did that. But Judy, you know, January, February is a long way off, and things may be changed by then. But those are some of the options. But I did want to open it up for discussion and see how people felt about it. Yeah, Jody.
We need to hear what you found out about the churches
Yeah.
and about Seabrook first, I think.
Sure. The churches are all basically consistent with CDC policy, which is what our policy is, asking people to wear masks, but not requiring it, and no requirement about vaccinations. Seabrook, for its own events, are now requiring masking for its sponsored events that they're doing, and they've actually canceled their Seabrook sponsored events through October. They're going to revisit that in the early to mid-October, but in the meantime, all third-party sponsored events that they're holding are being held as usual. That's weddings. If we were holding an event, it would be okay. And what they basically said is they will accept whatever protocol the renter is putting into effect. So that if we had something in the next couple of months at Seabrook, they would basically be okay with that according to whatever we wanted in terms of protocols. So that's where the other venues are.
So now what happens if an artist is going to require masks and so on? I have tickets to a concert at North Charleston in November. That artist is asking that people show vaccine things or a test within 48 hours and wear masks. Oh, so
Yeah.
what do we
If
do?
that is-
Our artists want that.
Our artist wants that. I think we're going to have to cancel the event. I mean, bottom line, because we cannot, because of the policy that we're dealing with, and because these venues, we do not own and operate them, we can't do that. And so, if the artist requires that, I think it's a pretty easy decision.
Question. What happens, I mean, on a number of these, we put in a deposit and stuff. What happens if we cancel the event monetarily? What's the situation?
There's provisions for that in our contract, Judy, and there's a method by which we would reconcile that.
Okay.
Like last season, we were able to get deposits back. You know, sometimes it took a while, but we were able to do that.
And if you remember, we actually, at the start of COVID, we had the town attorney add provisions for COVID, and most artists did the same thing on their contracts as well. So everyone pretty much, is honoring this public health crisis in that. But each one is different. So I'd have to I know what ours is, but there's been some artists that we've had to sign their contracts too. So I'd need to look, and I don't have my folders here today. So.
But what I would suggest is that you contact the agents and artists themselves via email and ask if there are any protocol requirements that they have that are not stated in their contracts, but that they have because some of them are, this is so new and I don't think they expected this. Some of them may have actually created some new riders that we haven't seen yet, but we just don't want to be surprised. So,
yeah. Well, I'm thinking my next event is after Christmas, so I'm thinking that I'm likely to just hang tight until and see how things develop with my artists. So I'm wondering you don't want to ask a question unless you're willing to hear the answer. And it may be that we don't want to ask those that are out too far in the future right now.
I agree.
I'm
thinking over the next couple of months, maybe before Christmas, the ones that we've got scheduled. So that would be Burning River Brass. We've already talked to Marantz, The Magician.
Would this be the time that
He's
you,
opened up his show in town. He has live audiences.
Go ahead, Bill. What?
I didn't know if you wanted to discuss the possibility of videoing the YouTube and so forth with at this time, or do you want to wait a little bit?
Yeah, Bill had suggested, the idea of doing some things possibly remote, like we did last year. I think that raises some other issues in terms of formatting and things, but Bill, you want to just spend a couple minutes talking about that?
Yeah, I was surprised when I was over at the Church of Our Savior. They now have a complete video system where they have 5 cameras plus the lighting, and they can video live shows any place we want to do it. And then they have they have Zoom, and I was impressed by all of the things they can do. And they could, if we had a group that we wanted to video, we could do that in place of in place of having an audience. Or it could be a combination of the video and maybe a smaller group of people, whatever. But they have a far greater capacity now for doing video than they ever had before, because they do church services and they video it out on YouTube to parishioners all across the area.
Yeah, I'm guessing that capacity is probably limited to Church of Our Savior. I doubt that the resort would have that or would let us use it. And Holy Spirit, I'm not sure, because they're so large. I'm not sure they've been doing their things remotely.
It would have to be done at the Church of Our Savior, and it would be, some events would be easier to do there than others. Marantz would be willing to do it there if that was the only alternative. Can work it out, but they do have that. We do have that ability to do a live video performance presentation.
Bill, have you watched a Sunday service to judge the quality of that?
Yes, not bad at all. And I was surprised at all the things they were able to do with the new lighting system and the video system that they have set up. It's quite sophisticated, more than I thought they would have.
Because they have a lot of music with their services.
Right, they
a lot
do.
of different instruments,
Yeah.
and players. So
Yeah.
it'd be interesting to for comparison. And
Right.
I can't recall right away like how many events we have scheduled there this year. Not as many as usual, but for instance, Becky, I think you have Benjamin Beelman there.
But not until the spring.
Right. I'm just saying, if worse came to worse, it's nice to know that we've got this as a possible fallback if the quality of the sound and the video
Right.
is
Yeah.
good.
And I would think if
doing
a couple of
this-
months out, if it looks like we want to go that direction, depending on the state of COVID and where we are, that's something we can certainly consider.
Our church has been doing it too. And I think the quality is good. But, I think a lot of churches are doing that.
Right.
And they've worked it out pretty well. I was thinking, though, of a situation, for example, in my church, Kristen goes there too, where at a recent service with people having optional masks and sitting normally not spaced out this summer, there was a cluster of about 5 or 6 people that ended up testing positive after the service. And they were wearing masks. Those people were wearing masks, and those people were vaccinated. So they had to inform the people that weren't wearing masks that were near them, and so on and so on. So we're going back to spacing people out again. Chamber Music Charleston has informed everyone that they're going to have people in the 8 feet apart in little groups of 2 or 1 at their house concerts, many of which are going to be outdoors. Pure Theater is doing some of that. I have to check with them because my event with Pure Theater is October 17, and I'll have to see what they feel, how they feel about the whole thing.
Yeah, what I'd like to suggest is, as you look at your event, especially Pure Theater and Marantz, this would be the time to, if we're going to hold these events, to adjust the capacity to ensure more social distancing if we cannot require masks. And I wonder really if 75%, which is our current capacity, is low enough given the certain state of affairs that we're in. I mean,
I think we should-
it's gonna really limit the number of people there, and that's too bad. But on the other hand, we just don't want a situation where one of our events becomes a super spreader, even with vaccinated people. So,
And also, for example, Turtle Point, the ceiling is low.
Yeah.
Some of the other venues, the ceilings are high, and that's better.
Mhm,
Yeah,
mhm.
and of course, as most of you know, I'm not going to be able to be at any events until this thing is much more over. But it appears to me that adjusting the capacity of the audience is a prudent, easy thing to do now before tickets go out in that.
Yeah,
It might make it easier for some people who would choose to come, but that's not the idea. The idea is that we want to keep the people who are there safe.
Mhm.
So I think
and
it's
that's
worth
why
it.
I think maybe we're wrong to eliminate the folding chairs at Church of Our Savior, because if we have them, then we can space people out more. And luckily, Church of Our Savior has a very high ceiling and is kind of open. But I just don't see packing people in as tightly as we usually do in their regular church pew seats.
Becky, I think that's a good point. That's something that Van, you might want to consider in terms of putting some of the chairs out to alleviate some of the distancing.
Makes sense to me. Yeah, because 150 would be pretty full.
Yeah, that's actually about how many of those red chairs they have.
That was 180. Yeah.
Yeah,
That doesn't leave much room for distancing. So
right.
some chairs would help that. Yeah.
Yeah, Becky, that's a really good point. I was thinking the same thing, that we probably ought to do a few rows, which will help, that people don't have to be crammed up against each other.
But are we we'll be talking, what we're talking about then is having more chairs, but we're leaving the distancing up to the audience, correct?
Yes. That's the way I see it.
If I could just ask, because I need to understand, and I want to give everyone an opportunity, that based on the information we've talked about today, I know for personal situations, there are some that are not going to be able to attend, but I need some sort of consensus from the council that, what I don't want is to walk away from this meeting and half of everyone be uncomfortable with the way that we're proceeding forward, because that is important. So I don't know, David, if you want to have everyone kind of chime in or take a vote or something official, because obviously the town can fill in as much as possible, but the way this program is set up currently, you are vital to our program. So I will need to, if I just need to know a little bit, I need to have a little bit more consensus from the council on proceeding forward with reduced capacity and all of that. I need to have a little bit firmer stance that everyone is either, it's not our best case scenario, but we are comfortable proceeding with making some adjustments. So
I'm almost thinking 50%. I don't know.
Who wants to go first? Judy, Judy's already made her position pretty clear. She's not going to attend. Jody, go ahead.
I'll go back second. And I've already spoken to David about this. I'm one of those people who cannot attend. I have been so excited to hear from the symphony, who took the position that every musician, every staff member must be vaccinated. And the Gilliard, with its protocol of vaccinations or tests and masks, The music hall, of course, started this. The Sotilli followed suit. So this protocol allows me to go back. That the protocol I just described from the concert halls. I understand that we can't just say, great, we'll do that. But that puts me in a bind.
Sure.
And not going back also to concerts also puts me in a bind with, I don't see how someone who takes that position can remain on the Arts Council.
Yeah.
So it seems to me terribly unfair for me to be, an Arts Council member and say, okay, you go to my event, because I'm not going to go. To pick and choose which of our duties and responsibilities I do and which I don't do. So it's a big thing.
Jody, if I could just speak to that, it is not that we can't make adjustments for the current state of affairs. I don't want anybody considering their future membership based on that. It's more about the council being, unified, at least from a program standpoint, that doing some of the things that we talked about, we're okay with it for this season. Otherwise, I would hate for people to be considering their membership based on that. But, we do have the option of saying, okay, we're going to cancel events. Nobody wants to do that, obviously. But I don't think this is I don't know that this is going to be taken care of in the next year or two, but there's adjustments that can be made, I think, for staffing and things of that nature in a short-term period. But obviously, I don't want council members, outwardly not comfortable with this program proceeding. So that's what, anyways, I just wanted to speak to your comment about your membership. I don't think that's what.
I can tell you, Jody, that your value is not based on your ability to get up and introduce an act.
Right.
Even though you're probably the best at doing that in the group. It's what you do here.
Mm-hmm.
That's behind the scenes, the meetings, planning, the support, your intellect, and those things just make a difference to this group. So the fact that you cannot attend the performance is not critical from my view.
I
feel like it's short term. We don't know how short that term is, but
I share those feelings also. I feel like that I am not able to do my part, and I don't know when or if I will be able to do my part. I'm highly immune compromised, and that's not going to ever change. And if anything, it will get worse. So I'm having to question whether or not I can continue.
Yeah, I think, going back to when Bob was sort of had a certain role on the Arts Council, which was a little different. I think we can. I can envision, and I want to even call it a leave of absence from event managing, but in a way, we all have different functions. I probably am not going to be looking for acts next year, other than maybe one, because I just don't have the time. That's not what I can do best, I think, for the Arts Council. It doesn't mean I'm not contributing. It just means I'm just not going to be talking to agents and proposing 4 or 5 events for next year. I just can't do it. Don't have the time. So I think we all have different roles to play, Judy and Jody. And I think, the person who MCs or who introduces them, it's a good, Judy, it's a good case in point. I mean, you did all the setup and all the beginning stuff. I just showed up and made the introductions and made sure everything went smoothly that night. I did the same thing for Becky at the Sanctuary last year or 2 years ago during the symphony. She did the interface and everything, and I showed up and
I left town.
and left town, exactly. So I don't think there's much of a difference in that. But I think Stephanie's point is, do we feel comfortable overall sponsoring these events in this time, at this time? And I think that's the larger issue, not can you show up at a concert.
Right.
And I'm not sure, Jody, if what you're saying sort of goes to that point, really.
It does as well, that
Yes.
can we in good conscience continue to present events to our community if we ourselves are not, willing to go there and take that risk?
Well, I'm in a similar position. I don't really know what the next injection I get is going to do for my level, but I can tell you that I was in MUSC hospital not that long ago, and I was there brought in by ambulance. There was no room. I was in the hallway because they were booked up, and I put in a hospital bed that was in a visitor's lounge, which had lights on 24 hours, difficult to sleep at all, but they didn't have any room. And they were telling me that the other part of the hospital was in real difficulty, where the people with the COVID virus were there. They were in real difficulty. They just didn't have any room.
And I've been to MUSC, and I have some procedures that are being put off, deferred, because the hospital is not safe enough for me to be in.
Right.
And they're overcrowded. They're sending people home.
Correct.
A friend of mine who is a band director, his little girl has encephalitis, and she needed to be admitted to the hospital. And they did not admit her. They sent her home with an IV because they couldn't get her in. Now this is here at MUSC. Other areas of the state are even worse. And they're calling in the National Guard up in Greenville to work in the hospitals. No, I'm not comfortable with an arts council continuing with our regular season. However, I am certain that my opinion is colored by the fact of my personal situation, and other people like Jody and Bill, other people whom I know are in exactly the same situation. But I'm living here at Bishop Gadsden. I leave my unit once a day to go for a walk, wearing my mask outside, and that is it. And going to doctor's visits, and those are being curtailed even. So no, I'm not comfortable, but I'm not sure my viewpoint or opinion is valid for other people.
We want to hear from everyone else too, Kristen and Becky as well, and Van.
I think the first step is obviously to reduce numbers, reduce capacity, to allow for social distancing for those that want to do that. And masks are always optional, and if people need them, they will wear them, just like they did the last concert. And then each concert we can reevaluate and say, okay, are we still good to go? But I think that's definitely the prudent first step, is go ahead and reduce capacity now.
I have a couple of opinions too. I think if you had tickets turned back in again, Stephanie, for Sunday, perhaps you wouldn't make more available. That sounds like we're pretty high up.
I agree with that. Yeah.
I feel I came back from New England. I know Joan's been up there. I was shocked to go into Harris Teeter and see so many of our visitors without masks. And so I don't know that they're going to be any more dangerous coming into a high ceiling concert hall. So I'm not afraid of going myself masked, and at this point in time. So I'd be happy to attend and do whatever I can to help out those that cannot attend at this point. I did feel Joan, it looks like, did we lose Joan?
I think we lost Joan. I'll try to get her back on. Go ahead.
I was just concerned about the piano bar where there's no tickets required, and that capacity at Turtle Point. Maybe having some way of regulating the number of people would be important for that event, or any other ones that are at Turtle Point. That's just my personal opinion. But I'm happy to come and be there and be the staff, the person on the council that's at these upcoming events, as many as, I can't attend the Marantz one, but the others I'll be able to attend, and could be a body in place, vaccinated with mask. That's me.
Becky, go ahead.
Well, I feel the same as Kristen. I'm okay with going. Fortunately, don't seem to be immune compromised yet. And I'm about to get my booster shot. I have it scheduled for the 22nd. I would like to see us reduced to about 50%, is my view. That's not a scientific number, but just a hunch. And then I would like to see us plan the spacing just as other venues plan the spacing. They usually do it in 2s and 4s, all throughout Spoleto, which I went to many events. That's how it was done. And it was fine, I found at our event with the jazz concert, almost every single person had on a mask. And I think people our age are accustomed to getting those masks back on. I don't think we have these belligerent kind of protesters that go flagrantly out doing things without masks. So I think we're safe like that. But I do think we should plan the spacing, and we should reduce the numbers to about 50%. Then, like Jody, I would feel comfortable at the Gilliard. I'm going to feel comfortable in some of these other venues that are doing these exact things, even though they're actually requiring the masks and requiring vaccinations and so on. I think at Kiowa, we can pretty much assume everyone's had a vaccination.
Yeah,
Anyone else want to chime in? Oh, go ahead, Stephanie. Yeah.
I was just going to say, as I did earlier, that, if the council wants to say that we want to require masks, the mayor did say that he'd be willing to put it on a special call agenda, but that obviously takes the resort out of our venue pool. So it's sort of piecemeal, it's not a good decision either way, I guess. And so just to Becky's point, it's not that we can't ask them to. Obviously, all of the town council would have to agree. But it's not owning the venue is really a huge problem. And
another thing, Stephanie, another thing we can do. I mean, I read the announcement at the jazz concert, but it was after people got into the venue.
Yeah.
I think we can also be a little bit more proactive as people come in. And just to say that we want people masked. That's the only way we're going to be able to continue with these concerts, is if people are masked. I feel the same way Kristen does. I feel even better after Labor Day that there's not a big crowd at the Harris Teeter like there was before Labor Day.
Right.
That I think our folks that attend concerts that are here during, between Labor Day and Memorial Day, who are, our full-time residents, or the folks that know what we're doing, they're going to be vaccinated. I feel a whole lot better attending the next event than I did the jazz concert, to be honest with you. And I'm one that I said, I wouldn't have a problem. I was masked. I stood at the back. I didn't sit at a table with other people. I felt pretty comfortable. But I absolutely understand if you don't. But that doesn't take in any way away from your contributions that you make as an Arts Council member.
I was really looking forward to hearing what happened at the jazz orchestra. Very, very disappointed not to go. But my understanding is that even though people wore masks coming in, they took them off. So.
Yeah, and that is the other point that I actually had down here to get to, is that even if you require the masks, obviously when they're not eating and drinking, or drinking really in our situation, that people have a tendency to take them off and leave them off. So
Mhm.
then, if you did want to move forward with the other option that I said, it would be a little challenging enforcement wise, but that there would have to be people in place, myself included, that would have to sort of go around and patrol and say, I'm sorry, watch people and say if they've had their mask off and go over and ask them to. And then we'd have to, if we were a hard and fast rule, we would have to remove them. I mean, it's just you go down like this other road of how that looks, and so
Practical.
it's very complicated.
I think Van's suggestion that we take each event on its own as we get closer to it. I mean, I don't know how anyone feels about liquid pleasure right now, but the idea of the whole concept of dancing is under these circumstances,
that's absolutely ludicrous.
Yeah.
No, and liquid pleasure is a lesson in how you cannot control a crowd, regardless. Each year it gets worse, and there are a lot of people from outside Kiowa who come to that event. So that's very difficult. And I like Van's idea of taking it one event at a time kind of thing. I like the idea of cutting the capacity, but when it comes to, for instance, Quentin Baxter's 3 series thing, if we cut his capacity, it's not an economically viable event. It's not going to happen. Now that is just realistic. But that doesn't mean, we got to have more people in Turtle Point. We're just going to have, these are some realities and ideas that just aren't really too comfortable.
We'll have to cross when we come to it. I was thinking the same thing, Judy. And it wouldn't be viable for him to bring people in at that capacity. But again, it's a question of what he would have to do, whether it's that or cancel. So. Yeah, absolutely.
So what about the September 22nd piano bar event coming up?
So Joan dropped off. She said I think she might have turned up. She said, can you count me in for being at all the events unless I'm sick? Sorry, I have to go. But I think for the piano bar, since it's actually at the Sandcastle, there is one thing that I know that Joan deals with or has dealt with in the past. When you're holding it at the Sandcastle, I think people can have perused in that weren't coming actually for the piano bar, right? People that were just there at the Sandcastle. Mm-hmm. So I think we would have to either have Joan or assist Joan in having the door actually monitored and reducing that capacity, and also we should probably, if we're talking about reduced capacity, talk about the events that have no tickets, like the sanctuary. I mean the symphony.
Yes.
So
yeah, it occurs to me that we didn't check with Kika on their venue in terms of what their policy is in terms of masking now. I know more people are masked going in now. The staff is all masked at Sandcastle now, whereas they weren't a month, 3 weeks ago.
Right. The last time I heard, they weren't requiring it, but that could have changed in the last month or so. But I can double check.
I would be happy to help Joan on the door there. I do think tickets put a burden on people, and I think they should have that burden of saying they're coming or not coming. So in the past, it was easy to just let people come in, but I think we need to have people on the line so we know exactly when they are coming.
Yeah, I think for the November tour of homes, though, that's what Stephanie's alluding to, is the no ticket event with Becky, and that's something, Becky, you'll just really need to think about in terms of how you control capacity at that event. I guess number of seats, the seats that we put out. That's the only thing we
That's
can do.
right.
Well,
We can do the Spoleto way of 2s and 4s. Uh-oh,
the other thing, Becky, for that event, we
I
could,
just lost your video. Can you hear me?
yes,
Yes.
we could add event services. Uh-oh, she dropped off.
Yeah, that's going to be tough because the CSOL, the league, is used to working the events and then coming to the
Yeah.
concert.
Yes.
That's going to be tough. But that one, I agree, is one that where we need to limit the number of people there.
I think for that event, if I could make a suggestion rather than the ticketing, because I can foresee people that are actually going to go to the tour of homes, then not somehow
Right.
getting the notice about the ticket for the concert.
Right.
What they do in some situations, which I think would may be appropriate here, is it's first come, first serve. And we have someone, you can do the counters at the door. We could have event service. This is just options. So
Right.
I'm just throwing out options. And counting.
I think we have to have wristbands too for attending that.
That's just for the tour of homes, though.
Yeah.
And so I think in putting a ticket on the symphony is going to be really problematic
Yeah.
for all of the people that attend the tour and the concert, because we've not done that. It's going to be
Well,
a really
right.
and there's slightly different audiences. There are people that go to the tour that do not
Right.
go to the concert, and the
Right.
people that go to the concert that don't go to the tour. But I think, yeah, limiting the seats and going back to Judy's spacing idea too, is that something that we would want to consider with taping, for example, even at the Charlestone's event? Or is that too much of a hassle, Van, to try to figure out where in the pews people are sitting? Or do we do 2s and 4s? I mean, I'm just not sure if that's beyond our capacity to figure out at those kinds of events.
It's beyond mine.
Yeah.
The first thing that will happen is that you'll have a 3. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna have to remove all the tape. I just
Yeah.
can't see that.
And some people will ignore it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
We
At church, we put little things on the seats where they can't sit. But again, a lot of people ignore it, but
like tax.
again, at least have a sign that says no sitting here or something. That's something that you consider.
Well, I don't think we've reached a consensus, but it seems that there are enough of us who are willing to attend, Joan, Kristen, myself, and Van, to at least staff what's coming up. I think I'm sensing a general agreement to limit capacity down to 50%. Does that sound like a plan?
That sounds good, like a good idea. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Do we want to think of anything outdoors, or is that too difficult?
Too difficult.
Very
Well,
good.
you have to have a plan B. You have to have
Yeah.
a weather. So they were back where we were before.
Bill, considering how many outdoor events you've had to deal with adverse weather, I am truly amazed that you would even bring that up.
But we thank you for considering it. Yeah, absolutely. Stephanie, do you have enough of a sense of where we are individually?
Yes, I do. And I appreciate everyone sharing. And I think the reducing the capacity is a good first step. And I can do that next week. Start that next week.
There's a possibility of reducing capacity if you did something at the Church of Our Savior and also video the event, if you wanted to consider that as a possibility.
I think just putting out chairs is going to alleviate that.
Yeah.
And people are going to get more uncomfortable as the weeks go on, and they just won't come. They'll just won't show up. That's what I think will happen.
I agree. I
And do
think
you
there'll
need
be.
help with chairs and things like that at the time before this event?
Well, I don't I always enjoy putting them out, but I can do it. Yeah,
I'd be happy to help you.
Definitely be there to
Well,
help you put chairs out.
Yes.
Because then you're
yeah.
back
I
up.
mean,
and I'm
we're not
you
we're
up.
not gonna we'll put out a row or two, and then I'll have some available as people want to sit way back. We'll just put out a few more as they come in or whatever. So
Okay, I'd be happy to help you.
thank you.
Yeah, and as we usually do, Chris and Van will probably send out a little email reminding people what time they're supposed to show up and
Okay. Thank you.
great. Okay, I think we've beat this dead horse. We've got another big issue to sort of talk about, which is event selection process for this year. And I sent out a rather long email sort of describing a change that I wanted to make, which was basically eliminating those little subgroups, but still having sort of a facilitator who at least the job would be communicating to all of us what's being considered so that everyone's in the loop. So that if Jody and Van are considering a vocal group, that we know that, and they could either work together or, at least we have an awareness before we finalize stuff or vote on it, that this is the kind of thing that members are considering. I did get a phone call from Bill, who supported the idea. I just wanted to know what you guys thought about that. You liked it, Van? Okay, good.
Yeah, made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, well, I really appreciate that. Before I leave, I'll sort of ask for volunteers or suggest some people to sort of follow up. But if you know that there's a genre that you'd sort of like to be the communicator on, just let me know. And before I ask people, I will, make those assignments. That would be great. The other thing was really not so much of a change, but more of a conscious effort to treat the cultural events in context of the other proposals, as opposed to thinking of them completely differently. I know we have to vote on them differently and consider them differently, but I'd like to us sort of consciously, when we pick our season, to remember that the folks that are applying for cultural events funding, they're part of the mix of our whole season, so that we're doing it sort of in the context of a diverse season. So it doesn't really mean a change. There's a slight change in the calendar that I proposed, but other than that, it just means that when we consider those, we're considering them in light of the other proposals that we haven't yet voted on. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yep.
Yes, definitely.
The last thing had to do with creating some sort of voting procedure that allowed more of our preferences than just a binary yes, no. And what I proposed is getting 3 people together and sort of discussing some different options for those votes, so that we have more of a ranked choice. So instead of just saying yes or no, you can say, this is a 1, this is a 2, this is a 3, if it's a 3-point scale, or a 1 through 5. There's all kinds of ways that we could do this, but it makes the voting a little more nuanced, and it means that those proposals with really strong support from a majority of members would have a larger weight than those with just lukewarm support from 3 or 4. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense.
I like that
Yeah.
very much.
There are
Yes,
a couple of
because
ways.
Yeah, there are lots of ways to do it. I belong to a book group, and we found one year that one of the books that we chose was everybody's last choice. So
Right. Yeah.
we don't want to have that kind of situation, if we can avoid it, and we can.
There are a couple of ways to rank, though. There's more than a couple, but if you rank by preference, that means you personally don't care for a particular group, so you give them a 1. Another way to rank is to rank them on how good a performance it is, or potentially is. This is a group that's definitely a 10. These folks are 1, so they're not very good. You can rank them based on their quality, I guess what I'm trying to say, rather than your personal preference of what you like and would like to see there. I mean, there's 2 different rankings. I'm not sure everybody's personal preference is the way to go.
I think one, yeah, go ahead, Jody.
It sounds like Van is volunteering to be on the 3-person committee to decide how we choose.
I think
I got that
yeah,
too.
I think that's right. But
I-
but the one thing you can run into with
Thank you, Jody.
Van's idea of quality is you could end up with unbalanced. You know, we might have proposals for 3 cellists, and they're all fabulous. But I don't think we want 3 cellists in our season.
Well, that's the second step. You resolve that
Okay.
after you get your top groups. Okay, these are the best ones we can get. And the reason I'm sort of leaning that way even more than I would have is at the last concert, a patron came up to me and with a complaint, basically. I'm sure, and we don't have to debate this because I know how most of you feel. I've been around you long enough, but they want to know why we do so many local groups when we can get people like Cantus, is what she said, and groups like that. They're international, national. You know, we spend all this time on local groups because I know the sentiment of most of you, so we don't need to debate that. That was a comment that came out. So being sure we have the quality, and we certainly have local groups with very high quality. That's not what I'm saying, but that's my leaning anyway. But
Well, Van,
I'll be
it's
glad
funny.
Go ahead.
When the first year I was on the council, I asked the question, what am I voting on? Am I voting on quality? Am I voting on preference? Am I voting on diversity of season? I still don't know. So I think all of those considerations, I think,
Right.
have to be paramount. So you're absolutely right.
Well,
And
they could all be
Jody's right.
there. They all could be there, but they need to come in a certain order.
Yeah.
Preference can be the last one.
Now it sounds like you're volunteering to chair this committee. It's good.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, Jody's helping me, so.
Yes, I will serve. Serve.
Great. I appreciate you guys thinking about it, and I apologize for the length of that email.
That's
Um,
great.
I'm so
so-
sorry. I was trying to help Becky get back into the meeting. What was this? What's the
We
special
missed a
committee?
few things.
Well, that's it's a committee to sort of look at the voting preference procedures. I think there was support for that idea, and now we've got a couple of months to figure out exactly what that's going to entail. So Van and Jody volunteered to be on. Kristen, would you like to be on it since you're new and you
Yeah.
that'd be great.
Yes, as long as you know that I'm new and I won't know that much.
I think that's what
Easily swayed by Van and Jody.
well, I think we could use some fresh perspective, which would be great.
Thank you.
So just as a matter of record, it would be a work group, not a committee,
Yes.
right?
Thank you very much. It's a work group,
Right.
Unofficial.
ad hoc work group.
Yeah,
Right.
ad hoc.
The planning timeline draft, I wanted Stephanie to sort of look at that first to see if the dates are okay. So she's going to sort of take a look at it, and if there are any changes, she can let me know, and I'll put out sort of a final draft of what that will look like for December through March is when the planning takes place. So I appreciate that.
I meant to email you, but right now I'm at my son's house helping take care of kids. But anyway, I cannot be at a February 3rd, I believe it is, meeting. And that's a very important one. But we always are away from about the 20th of January until about the 8th of February. So always somehow the Arts Council schedule worked out that wasn't a problem for me, but if that date could be pushed back a little bit, please, I appreciate it.
I don't think that'd be a problem, Becky. It's enough in advance so we can sort of take a look at that.
Okay.
Next item on the agenda is new members consideration. I met with Dylan Keith and Kimberly Adele, who had both expressed an interest in joining the council. And then I asked Jody and Van to meet with them as well, which you guys did, and I appreciate that. Was that in July, I think? Was it? Maybe August, July, somewhere.
Short-term memory, don't know.
I met with them in June, and I think we would be really good additions to the council. I sent you their resumes. They're actually both professional circa artists. They're young, they're vibrant, they're energetic. They can move chairs.
That's good.
And I think especially now, considering where we are in terms of membership, I think we could use some new members. And we had put out the call back in the summer in the town notes, and they emailed me. They're very interested, so I would put them up for consideration.
I have a couple of questions. How do they see themselves here? It looks to me like their qualifications and stuff are as artists and producers. Would they be bringing events that they would like for us to consider, or how do they see themselves?
I think and you can chime in, Van and Jody, but my sense is they want to contribute in any way we would like them to contribute. They were pretty flexible. I think they probably have some knowledge of some artists and events that are out there that we may not have considered in terms of new vaudeville and things like that, and acrobatic stuff possibly. But I don't think that's the reason they want to join the Arts Council. I think they really enjoy our activities. They've been coming to our events since they've moved here, and they just want to contribute, just like all of us.
I think they would view themselves as full-fledged Arts Council members. Her parents owned a place here, and she spent time here as a youngster, has a great respect for Kiowa and all the things that we do. And if you looked at her resume, you see she has a degree in piano as well from the University of Texas at Austin. So she's got the musical background, their enthusiasm, their knowledge. I thought, and I think Van agrees, just excellent candidates. My only qualm, and Van didn't have a problem with it, and I don't think David does either, as we have not had heretofore a husband-wife team. But obviously they've got the events management down.
Yes.
Big time. So just two delightful human beings who would love to be on the Arts Council.
I think they have different interests as well. I think they can propose things separately and manage things separately. I also like the idea as it brings some diversity to us in terms of generation. And it's not to denigrate everybody here that might be over a certain age, except for Stephanie, but
she's not getting any younger, right?
not after yesterday. No.
Not after yesterday or the day before that.
Let's don't get into that topic.
Yeah, I think Van and I really enjoyed our coffee with them. Van,
go ahead, do it. Ask them. Yeah, and if they don't behave, we can sort of push them to the right way.
Is there consensus that we ask them to join then? Can I have a motion?
Do we have to change the bylaws or anything in terms of the numbers on the committee? Is that flexible?
We don't have any numbers, do we?
Yeah, we do. I think
we do. Yeah.
I think it's 9. But I need to double check that because I don't retain numbers well. It's not my talent, so I'll have to double check.
Let's pending that. Let's okay this and let Stephanie sort of check the bylaws, see if there needs to be a change. But let's sort of move forward, and I can let them know that we're sort of checking the numbers to see, because it's a bylaw that we could probably change if there is a number.
Yeah.
It's just that you want to keep it odd, I think, for voting purposes is one of the reasons why it was an odd number. But I don't know that it's always that's actually lived up to be true when, based on who volunteered. So, And of course, the voting will be, if you vote with a ranking type thing, I don't know that that might change the purpose of that number. So, okay.
We won't make a formal motion now until we check the bylaws. But let's do that and then consider it at our October meeting in terms of formalizing it. But
Good.
great. Any other updates or correspondence? Anything on the replacement of Keely? Stephanie, where are we with that?
Yes, actually, I was gonna give you guys an update. So town council has approved and to add a full-time arts council liaison to my department, which Keely was, but we're gonna keep that position as communication specialist to help me, do the communications for the town. There'll be a dedicated person for arts council liaison type role. And obviously it will look a lot like what Keely did for you. My role would be the same, but we might fine tune things a little bit because going through this with having Keely and then not, it's kind of, it's nice to have had a bird's eye view, then to come back down, then to kind of integrate someone else. I think we can tweak a little things and make it a little bit easier. And also, it'll be a full-time person for Arts Council. So some things may change, regarding their responsibility. So, but all that to say, it is approved and I'm going to be fine tuning the job description and hopefully getting it to David at the beginning of next week to kind of review. And then we'll start advertising. And then I know that you all have probably channels that you might, alert that we're hiring for that kind of position. You might have some good suggestions for outlets. I know, David, who were you? There was
Yeah, I've got recent graduates of both College of Charleston as well as Winthrop in the arts administration, arts management programs. So
right.
Good.
Can send some notes out. Okay. Anything else, Stephanie, from your point of view?
The only thing is I do need, and I can follow up with members individually, but I have the kind of event promotional blurbs for everything up to Pure Theater, but nothing further from that. So if you have an event in October, November, December, or any of your events really that I can update our website with, that would be helpful if you could start forwarding those on, or if it's just a matter of me pulling certain things from a website, if you just tell me what parts you want included in the event promotion. And that's featured obviously when they go to purchase tickets, and then also in the Arts Council e-blast that goes out every 2 weeks.
And are you going to do programs for, like, for example, Pure Theater? They usually have a program mocked up anyway that we can use, or they can even print in the past, but sometimes groups are not handing out programs.
Well, and that's what I wanted to ask, because I don't mind doing the programs, but is that a safety, something protocol that we should talk about? We're not.
Yeah, and I went to an event when I was up in New England a couple weeks ago, in which we just scanned something at the beginning, a QR code in the lobby, and then we brought up the program on our phones, and it worked fine. It's what you guys do with menus now at a lot of places that no longer have paper menus. I wonder if that should be pretty easy for us to do, wouldn't it?
It would be easy.
What?
It's just I think, well, it's been a while since I set up the QR code kind of thing, but you just assign and it like takes you to a website. All it would be a matter of me printing out the QR code and then still having obviously the content I would need from the artist to assign to that website that it would go to. So we foresee Pure having a program material, right? Pure is going to have a program type material.
They usually do, so
Yeah.
I will talk to them about that.
So does that mean, what about the Charles Stones has an actual 2-sheeter. So are we okay with that one being out
Yeah, I think we should print that. We can make it shareable, just not print so many and ask people to share, couples to share, I guess.
And they can pick
Yeah.
up their own programs. We don't
They
have
could-
to actually give it to them. If that's.
Yeah.
You can even put them on the seats, you know, every other seat or something like that.
Yeah, that would be good.
Mhm.
Yeah, if we could just not be passive.
Mhm.
Something on that.
I think that's
Yeah.
good.
Right.
Yes.
Tack the better.
So the question for you, Stephanie, is how many programs, right?
That's right.
150 people?
Mhm.
Is that what do we finally use, finally decide would be the capacity?
150.
Thought we were doing 50% now.
We'd have to do that moving forward.
After,
Tickets are already out.
yeah, after the
Right.
Charlestones, yeah.
Yeah, after this.
I think our guidelines said, or our procedures is that we do half of the audience size
Yes.
for programs, but
Yes.
correct me if you remember it differently.
That's what I remember. It's half, but how many times have we said, can you share when we hand them a
Yeah.
program? So,
Okay, 75 programs, and I'll
Okay.
spread them out in the seats and they can pick them up as they want them.
Great.
And just so before the event, just if you can email, so you're sure of who's coming and what time and when, you know, that'd be great. And Bill, also, since we don't have a meeting before Moran, same thing in terms of who, because you're not going to be there, so you're going to need someone to manage to MC it, right? Yeah.
You're
You're on mute.
muted, Bill.
You're muted.
There you go.
Is that working now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think, but Marantz usually prints up the program. So I'll have him, we'll have to figure out the numbers, but yeah, he does that.
You need to find someone to MC that event if you're not going to be there for the
Right.
actual concert.
Yeah,
As I said, I will not be around. I guess it would be either Becky, Kristen, or Joan then.
I'm sorry, I'm out of state.
That's right, and Kristen's not going to be there, so it would be Van or Becky or Joan, I guess.
okay.
And I will be there too. I have a question though. If we're reducing the capacity for like Marantz, the seating is the tables and everything going to be the same as with the Charleston Jazz? Because maybe we should spend a little time, David, or this next week figuring that out with what works in each venue for our.
Right, that's a good idea.
Because the
Yes.
setup is going to determine, the numbers should determine sort of the setup, right?
Yeah, because we can still have more chairs than we need since it's a ticketed event. We're not letting people in without tickets. So we can still set up as many tables as we want. It will be more spread out because they have more choices of places to sit. So
Okay.
I think that would be the answer. But I think it's up to the event manager when they talk to you and talk to Barbara if it's at West Beach in terms of, it's what Judy did in terms of where those things will be.
Okay.
yeah, Barbara has her current, what we saw at the Charleston Jazz Orchestra is her current maximum number of people that they're willing to put in there, maximum number of seats. And where is Marantz? I don't
It
remember.
is West Beach. It's
It's
at
what?
West Beach. It's at West Beach.
Beach. Okay, that you can use that as the maximum number. But do you want to cut it? We're talking about 50%.
Well, here's what I would suggest, Judy, is that we cut it, but we have the same number of tables and chairs that we had at the Jazz.
Okay.
So we just have the room is the same. We have this. We might have 200 seats, but we're only letting 150 people in. Let's say if that's the 50%, whatever the number is.
That's a very good idea. That can encourage people to spread out.
But
But
I
that-
have a question about tables. I don't see how we very well can space people out at tables. We had at the jazz orchestra, we had 6 per table, where we usually had 8, but they still were sitting 2 feet away from each other. If we're concerned about spacing, I think we should go to just chairs and not use tables.
Visually, to me, with tables, that feels better, to be honest with you, unless you're gonna do
Right.
two, 3, leave a space. I mean, that, I don't know, I guess it's up to you guys, but
Yeah, you're right. The tables create more spacing.
between the pods of people.
Ultimately more
honestly,
spacing than rows of chairs. Yeah.
Well, then the other problem is if you don't have the tables, you almost give them a little bit more freedom to move the chairs around where they want to.
That's
So then
right.
you might have a grouping of 10 people closer, at least the tables creates a barrier.
We could also have tables with 4 people and tables with 6 too, to even cut it down
Chairs,
further.
right.
Is this true for the piano bar as well at the Sandcastle? No.
Oh,
That's something,
Joan about that.
Kristen, if you can talk to Joan about that, because
I will.
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right. I think she's going to have to think about that
Mhm.
and how to limit it
Yes.
a bit more. 'Cause I think
absolutely. The piano bars worry me.
Yeah, me too.
And the only problem is with the piano bars is that if they are a resident that uses the Sandcastle, there's been a
Mhm.
problem in the past with the Sandcastle can't allow, they can't tell them they can't come in and
Can't
use
go,
the facility
right.
because it's the property owner's facility. So
Mhm.
just letting you know that that's been an obstacle in the past. So
Yes.
but that's one thing you might want to ask the folks at the Sandcastle is can we, if we want to limit the capacity, is it okay for us to say, okay, that's nobody else in the room
right.
at a certain point?
I think that's Joan's call, but I'll talk to her about it.
Well, there are certain activities at the Sandcastle that are limited.
Yeah.
They do it themselves. One of them is bridge. You can't,
Yeah.
they don't let anybody in that didn't sign up. And many other things you
That's
have
true.
to have
But
signed
the
up.
talks, always the talks used to be limited.
Mhm.
Yeah, and they're still limiting the exercise classes. You still have to sign up for those. So,
Yeah. So we
okay.
should be able to.
Good point.
So that's something that if you're an event manager, start thinking about the seating and what your choices are in terms of spacing and numbers of chairs or tables, or if you want to do a combination of tables and chairs. We had enough spacing with the chairs in the back in the jazz orchestra that I felt really comfortable in the back of the conference center. It wasn't bad at all.
What are we talking about the numbers now again at West Beach? If we go to 50%, what is that in terms of of attendance, number of people?
I should be able to tell you because I got the diagram and everything, but I can't. I have
Okay.
a difficulty in remembering numbers, and I can't tell you what that is, but I can look it up and see. Or Bill, you can go to
We had 500 seats for Marantz, I can tell you that. So it'd be 250, and we had 330 for jazz.
well 300 for what Barbara told me was a 330 was the max that they would allow in that room
All the time or just right now?
right now.
Okay.
Was that, we didn't use the entire ballroom though, did we, Judy?
No, but that's what she said. That's what her management said was 330. That is it.
But did we use all 4 spaces that you
Yes.
could open up?
Yes, we opened up the whole thing, but there was space at the back behind the tables. There was extra space.
Yeah. That's where I
I
sat.
don't think so.
I don't think we opened the whole ballroom, Judy.
Well, that's what I was told. check on me, check
There's
on.
one more. I thought there was one more room over.
There was, yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay,
But Bill, that's something you may want to talk to Barbara about, is that if they are limiting it to the space we used for the jazz folks, then it would be 330.
and then
And
that's,
we would,
and you may want to cut it from there.
yeah.
Okay, I do need that number firmed up before the 17th because that's when those tickets go on sale. So,
And I want to mention, I'm not going to be in town for Marantz, unfortunately. So that leaves, I'm not sure who, too.
Van and Joan, or I can,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
Make announcements. Mhm.
dropping
I'll
like
check with
flies.
Barbara on that number of 330 or whatever they, okay.
That was
Any-
too many, I think. I mean, now that we know what we know, I think 330 is too many.
we didn't have 330 though. There was only like 200 people there, I think.
Is
But
that right?
mhm.
I don't remember tables being empty much around.
Oh yeah, there was, because Charlton
I-
Singleton was sitting by himself at a table and there was 2 or 3 others. It was more towards the left side
Yeah.
that you couldn't
Oh.
really see.
Oh,
There were some tables up front that were pretty empty too, up on the right side up front. We only had like 2 or 3 people. So, I have nothing else to report. No comments. Anything for the good of the order from anyone else?
yes. I need to just quickly report back about the reception for Ken Lamb. If you recall, this group that I'm a part of, which includes the symphony itself, the league, and some of the symphony staff, planning these receptions and things to honor him during the year. Okay, so I was going to find out about champagne being served after our concert. Things are a little different right now.
Yeah.
And I have a meeting with this group on the 15th. So we can discuss what we think that looks like. Barbara says that we can use the lobby or the hall, and I would suggest the lobby. It's bigger and more space. The symphony is going to pay for the champagne, or Carol Fishman's going to find some money somewhere. So that is not something for us to worry about. I see it as small cups of just enough champagne for one toast. And the champagne is $52 a bottle. And the resort will give us a 10% discount. I don't know if we could get them also to not charge a tax, because if this is really being sponsored by the Symphony and the Symphony League, both of which are 501(c) organizations and sometimes are able to arrange not to pay tax. But anyway, I'll discuss the finances with them. I also asked Barbara if volunteers could hold the trays with these small cups for people. And if, so therefore we wouldn't have to pay for, nobody would have to pay for any other staff. And also if the same bartender can stay throughout the concert and be there, because I think we pay $175 for the bar and the bartender for 3 hours. That's what it really,
275.
what, 275?
275.
Well, anyway, I've read their catering sheet that means it can be there for 3 hours. So if that person that attends the bar could be the one that opens champagne and pours the little cups, the league, I think, could provide some volunteers to stand with trays. People could pick it up. And then basically it's just a toast that's going to be done. Then I talked to John Labriola, and he's very happy to do a proclamation. And I guess he has to get the council approval, but he just said, anything I can do, I'll do. And I will get this committee to write up some of the whereas things. And John will be willing to be there and present the proclamation. And I will talk to Kyle Lane and see when during the concert it will be presented. Sometime in the middle, we thought would be best. And then we just, have to work out the details. So that's what I know. I've also asked Barbara if they have Prosecco instead of champagne. It was $52 a bottle, is kind of a lot. And I don't know what that includes as far as, serving it and stuff.
The sanctuary has Prosecco for sure.
What? The sanctuary?
Sanctuary has Prosecco, I know.
Okay.
I've had a
Well, so I need to talk to her a little bit more, but I just wanted you to know, it looks like the reception can proceed as long as we figure out with this other group that it's feasible as far as COVID is concerned.
I'm a bit nervous of people in the lobby. I would not do that. But how do the rest of you feel?
What about the lobby? What do you mean? What?
Well, it's just, there's people milling around. They got to take their mask off to drink the champagne, and I'm just not comfortable.
Well, that's the problem with the reception.
Yeah.
And Ken himself might be uncomfortable because he is very careful. I saw him a month ago and he was just bumping elbows and wearing a mask a lot and all that sort of thing. But he was enjoying talking to people after the concert at Brevard. And the idea of this was to allow some members of the public to get, or our audience to get to chat with him a little bit. So he, I'll need to talk to him too. But
Becky, I think probably in the middle of October, maybe a month before, you want to sort of take a look at where things are to see if it's, I'm sure it's feasible from a logistic point of view, but to put him in a position where he's shaking hands with members of the public,
he would never shake hands.
Well, I'm talking about that sort of closeness where people do want, if you want to encourage people to sort of, wish him well and talk to him, you might be putting him in a very awkward position where he's going to tell you, yeah, I can do this, but it may not be something that's really wise depending on where we are in November.
Right.
Well, remember that we're co-sponsoring it with the others. The other groups are the symphony itself. They may not be comfortable making this happen. They would never ask Ken to do something he doesn't want to do. And the league, of course, also is involved. So I just know the logistics at this point about that. And I will talk to them on the 15th. We'll hash it over and I'll let you know at the next meeting, what they think. I know, I feel the same way you all do. It's maybe not going to be able to happen, but by November 13th, who knows?
Yeah, and I think the public proclamation, that's an easy thing to do because it's at the podium and and if we do that, that seems real doable. The other stuff, I feel the same way as Judy. At this point, I probably would say no. We'll see where we are in a month. So
yeah.
Okay. Anything else anyone wants to bring up on the agenda, or that's not on the agenda? All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved in second. Okay. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Safe travels, David.
Yep, I'll be out of town from if all goes well, from the 15th to the 5th. So case you're looking for me.
Safe
Good luck.
travels.
Good luck.
Bye, guys.